Okay, today we're in chapter 15 of the book of Proverbs. Now, we have stopped and spent some time talking about anger and the tongue here and so forth in this realm. So today we're going to see how much we can cover. We're just going to go kind of verse by verse and pick out the major things. So here's the way really I think we ought to do this. At least it's the way I like to study the book of Proverbs. And that is, as we read each verse, we'll obviously not take a lot of time talking about it, but let's each one of us think, yeah, how does that apply to me? And so just stop to think in this realm. There are so many things out there that apply to us in life. That is that if we could have the opportunity to go up to Solomon, say, Solomon, how many different subjects would you say affect our life? In other words, as I go through life, how many different things should I look for? And if I will learn how to react under those circumstances, I'll be a pretty happy guy. Well, as we said before, I don't know how many Solomon would come up with, but as we go through here, we're going to see it's just one after another after another. He's not trying to take them in clumps. He's not trying to say, now, we're going to have a lot of proverbs on the tongue, then we're going to have a lot of proverbs on this or on that. It just, each proverb is different, and a little while you come back around maybe to a proverb that's on the same subject again. I've told you before, I have no idea. If you sat down and you went through the book of Proverbs and you wrote down all the different subjects that are mentioned, I don't know how many there would be. I thought it was interesting this week that I have a couple books on Proverbs, and one of them is a commentary, and so I thought, I wonder how many things he's broken down. So I picked it up this morning and looked over at the table of contents, and there were 13 different things. Well, you know, we've already covered more than 13 different things in the book. So I picked up the other one and looked at it, and he had it broken down into 55 different subjects. And so you think, boy, maybe he has a lot there to break it down in. So here in our first verse, it says, "The tongue of the wise uttereth knowledge aright." So I looked and I thought, I wonder what he has to say on tongue. So I looked at the table of contents, and that's not even in there. So out of the 55, one of the major things that you'll find in the book of Proverbs, he didn't even talk about. So you say, what are you trying to say? Well, what I'm trying to say is this, that the people who write books on this subject, the people who have analyzed it and claim to know somewhat about what they're talking about, do not seem to know any more than what I know. I don't know how many things it's broken down in, and I can tell that there are two guys who've written books on it. They don't know how many things it's broken down in. But I do know this. I do know that if you take the word tongue or mouth and you start looking through the book of Proverbs to see what all it says about that, it would be a gigantic study within itself. Some of these days, we may just stop and spend a whole class on the tongue. But for right now, let's just start and let's think as we look at this, okay, is this a weakness that I need to work on? And so here it starts today, and it says, "The tongue of the wise uttereth knowledge, but the mouth of the fools pour out folly." So if you are a wise man, your tongue is going to utter wise things. You're going to talk in a wise way. But if you're a fool, it'll just be a bunch of foolishness that comes out of your tongue. Well, you say, I know that, and we do know that. But we need to stop and think, how do I speak? Could you say that I have a wise tongue, that I can speak wisdom when I open my mouth? Then something entirely different, as we've said, it just goes from one thing to another. Verse 3, the eyes of Jehovah are in every place, keeping watch upon the evil and the good. Wow. Isn't that interesting to stop and think about that? Now, we all knew that. We all knew it when we walked in this assembly this morning. We know that God has all this knowledge and He does all of this. But to stop and think and look at it in this way, and that is that the eyes of the Lord are in every place. So the eyes of God, eyes of the Lord, are looking at you right now. Now, I'm also looking at you right now. But when I look over here at Dave, I'm not looking over here at Roger. And so I might look over at Dave, and Roger may stick his hand up and sneak something out of a lady's purse. And I don't see him. And he might be a thief. And I don't catch him because I'm looking on this side. But the Lord sees every one of us 24 hours a day, watching what we're doing, whether it is good or whether it is evil. Now that is an awesome thought. And as I said, we all knew that. We know that the Lord knows everything, but it's putting it in proper perspective, that He looks at us 24 hours a day and knows what we're doing. Now we're back to the tongue again. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breaking of the spirit. So as we talk and as we speak with a gentle tongue, not with a harsh, cursing tongue, but with a gentle tongue, then that is a tree of life. That is that if I will speak in that way, I will be able to enhance your life so that it might be called a tree of life. Now, we go back and we think about the tree of life. Go back to the Garden of Eden. The tree of life is the tree that provides life for all mankind. Now, here it says, a gentle tongue will do that. A gentle tongue will provide people with the tree of life. But on the other hand, but perverseness therein is a breaking of the spirit. So now if you get ugly and mean, then you can break a person's spirit. So now then we begin to see the power of the tongue. How much power that there is there. And as we go through these Proverbs, we'll see it just starts building, one upon the other. But here he says that the power of the tongue is that you can speak in such a way that you can enable people to really, truly live. On the other hand, you can speak in a way that will actually break their spirits and cause them all kind of problems and all kind of sadness. And it's all just in the power of the tongue, see, that you've got there. What is it? An old proverb that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me? Well, it's exactly the opposite. That words can hurt you much more than sticks and stones. That sticks and stones can break your bones. But words can absolutely devastate you, ruin your life, cause unhappiness for the rest of your life. So he's showing us the power that there is in there. Then he goes on and he says something he's talked about before. A fool despiseth his father's correction, but he that regardeth reproof getteth prudence. So a fool is going to be somebody that when dad tells him, do this or don't do this, he's not going to regard it. Just going to put it off. All the old man doesn't know what he's doing. And so he'll put it away from him. But if you regard what he says, you're going to get prudence, and that is good understanding, wisdom. Understand what life is all about. 6, in the house of the righteous is much treasure, but in the revenues of the wicked is trouble. Now, this is interesting, the way it's stated. In the house of the wise, here, in the house of the righteous is much treasure. Now, we can read that, and the first thing that jumps to our mind is that if we're wise, we'll be rich. If we are wise, there is much treasure. In the house of the wise is much treasure. So if you're wise, you're going to have a lot of treasure. You're going to be rich. But that's not really what this says. It's not what it says. Look at it again right here. In the house of the righteous is much treasure. Now, in the house of a person who is a righteous person, in that house, whether they're rich or whether they're poor, there is much treasure, is what he's saying. There's a lot of treasure in it. You can take a very poor man, and you see that in his house, in his home, there's happiness. There's happiness, there's contentment. Now that's a lot of treasure in that. But on the other hand, you take the other, but in the revenues of the wicked is trouble. So if you look at the wealth that a wicked man has, there's going to be a lot of trouble. So if you take two rich men, let's say, you take a rich man. If he's wise, all of that treasure and everything that he has will bring about a great deal of happiness. But if he's wicked, it's going to bring about a great deal of trouble. It's going to cause trouble all around. The same thing is true of the poor man. And so whether you're rich, whether you're poor, is what he's saying. That if you're righteous in your house, in the treasure of your house, whether that treasure be $100 or $100 million, in that treasure, if you're a righteous man, there's going to be a lot of treasure, a lot of happiness that's there. On the other hand, if it's not, there's going to be a lot of sadness. In fact, I suppose you could say, when you take a wicked man, the more wicked they are and the richer they are, the more unhappy that the family's going to be. We could probably take this Madoff family as a good example. That here he had accumulated all of that wealth, and it was all in wickedness. And how much trouble now has it caused his family? See? How many problems has it caused it? Well, if you found out that I'm as wicked as Madoff, you're going to see that my wealth will not cause that much trouble, okay? Because I don't have that much wealth. But here is a real wealthy man, and he's going to cause all of that. So it's not the amount. The thing that means something in this life is, are you righteous or are you wicked? Then the lips of the wise discern knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doth not so. Now we're back to those lips again. So how many things here are we going to find in the book of Proverbs that has to do with the mouth, the words, the tongue, the lips? This is going to be one of the major things in the book of Proverbs. One of the major things. If you sat down, you went through the book, and you wrote down all the things that he talks about, you're going to find this will be right at the top of the list. 8. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to Jehovah, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. Now, we see this throughout the Bible, that wicked people offer sacrifices to God. And over and over again, God has said he has no pleasure in the sacrifice of wickedness. In fact, at one time, he told them, take your sacrifices away from me. I hate your sacrifices. And he doesn't want to have anything to do with the sacrifices of the wicked. Now, we come back again to this over and over again. What makes a difference in happiness in life? What makes a difference in your happiness in your relationship with your fellow man? What makes a difference in your relationship with God? And it's not how much you have, but it's what kind of a heart you have. Are you a righteous man or are you a wicked man? If you are a righteous man, you're going to be a blessing to your fellow man. You're going to bring happiness to your family. You're going to be pleasing to God. But if you're a wicked or an unrighteous man, all of that is just exactly the opposite. And so even the sacrifice, that's the point that we make here. Even if a wicked man offers a sacrifice to God, God hates it. God doesn't want it. Now, we need to understand that that's true. Instead of trying to cover it and say, oh, isn't this person a nice person? Look at what they've given to the Lord. No, that's not it. What about their character? Are they wicked or are they righteous? Now look at the other half of that. See, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. Absolute abomination to God. That's about the ugliest word that you can get. That if you're a wicked person and you offer sacrifice to God, it's abomination. Look on the other hand. But the prayer of the upright is his delight. Now, this again is something that I suppose causes most of us a little problem to understand. The prayer of the upright is his delight. Have you ever thought about it in that way? That the temperament of God, the way God's emotions run, how God feels. So now just think about you and your God. Don't try to think about everybody else. Just think about you and your God. Now, if you're a wicked person, whenever you offer a sacrifice to God, whether it's money, whether it's prayers, whether it's song, when you offer a sacrifice to God, it's an abomination. Now, how would you expect a person to react when it's an abomination? If somebody came up and gave me something right now, handed me a gift, and I looked at it and it is an abomination, how would you expect me to react? You'd say, you sure wouldn't have a happy face. You'd look at it, you'd twist up your nose, you'd move back if it was an abomination. Now that's the way God feels when a wicked person offers sacrifice to God. But on the other hand, now just you and your God, just remember this. The prayer of the upright, if you're an upright person, you're an honest, righteous person, then it is his delight. It makes him happy. Now if somebody came and offered me a gift now, and it was my delight, it was just, you'd say that is my delight. Now how would I react? Now I'm going to have a smile. Now I'm going to be full of happiness. Now I'm going to have this attitude. Have you ever thought about God in that realm? As God is sitting on his throne and looking down at you, just you and your God, and how that you can make him repulsed or how you can make him delighted. When we think about it in that way, I think it just kind of turns life around. Wow, I can make God delight, make him happy when I go to him in prayer if I am a righteous person. Well, let's move on. He said, the way of the wicked is an abomination to Jehovah, but he loveth him that followeth after righteousness. So here again is the same thing in different words. The way of the wicked, what a wicked man does, is an abomination to God, but God loves a person that follows righteousness. So abomination, love. You can't get two things farther apart. One is an abomination to God, and the other God loves. And it all boils down to one thing, the condition of your heart. Are you a righteous person? Are you a person that does that which is right? 10, there is a grievous correction for him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. So now, different subject, but here now is a person that hates correction. He's not going to take advice, going to do what he wants to do. Now there's a grievous correction for him that forsaketh the way. It's coming. He's going to be corrected. And we see this in people that's so obviously wicked, that they're wrong and they began disobeying parents and then rebelling against the police and doing this, and we all know where they're headed. We say, well, that person is headed for trouble. That's what this is saying. There is a grievous correction. Somewhere down the line, that guy is going to be corrected in a grievous, hurtful way. And sitting behind the bars or whatever it is, going to understand it didn't pay to do that. Now 11. Sheol and abandon are before Jehovah. How much more then the hearts of the children of men? Now Sheol and abandon. Sheol is a grave. That's if you die, you go to grave. Now, the next word there, abandon, that means destruction. It means destruction. It means that God sees you when you go to the grave. God sees you. He knows. He's not just looking, and I think if we just look at it and say, okay, so now then your casket is put 6 feet down, so God is looking 6 feet under the dirt. No, it's death. It's the grave. He can see where you are. He even sees when you're destroyed. If you are a wicked person and go to destruction, God sees that. Now, if God is so powerful that He is able to see that, how much more can He see into your heart right now? How much more can He see right now? So now we put it together. The eyes of Jehovah are everywhere, looking at each one of us, noticing everything we say, everything we do. And over and over again, He tells us, from your tongue to your treasure to your actions, it all depends upon righteousness. I love and delight in the righteous person. I hate and am repulsed by the wicked person. And my eyes are always on you. And I know your heart. I know what kind of a heart you have. And we might think, well, does he really? How many times have you said, or you've heard somebody say, especially when they slip and curse around you, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Or, that's not the kind of person I am." We've heard them say, "No, yeah, it is. Sure it is. That's the kind of person you are." But we can get by hiding our wickedness a lot of times because I can't read your heart. I can't read your mind. Paul said the only person who can read your mind is the God in heaven. So you may be the most wicked person that ever lived. Cheating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you come in here and I look at you face to face, and all you've got to do is just say the right things. Just talk about how you love God and just say the right things. and you can get by with me. No problem there. But what this is saying is that you can't get by with God, because God sees in the grave, God sees in destruction. There's nothing that is held back from the eyes of God. Now, if we stopped right here, we've learned quite a lot today, haven't we? We've learned quite a lot, and we've heard, wow, maybe I should examine my life. Before I go to God in prayer the next time, will my prayer be a delight or an abomination? What do I need to do? That's what we're learning in this today. A scoffer loveth not to be reproved, and he will not go unto the wise. A scoffer is an unlearned guy who makes fun of religion. That seems to be the two elements that is involved in the word scoffer, is ignorance and one who has no compunction against making fun of religion. So a person of that nature, they're not going to accept reproof. They're not going to listen to anybody who corrects them. And they're certainly not going to go to a wise person and talk to him. So that kind of person is headed for destruction. Then 13, a glad heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. Something totally different. Now, we all can look at our life and say, a glad heart maketh the spirit a cheerful countenance. That's true. Have you ever seen anybody that got good news and they were really happy, but they didn't have a cheerful heart? See? It can't be. If you get good news, if you're really happy, you have a cheerful heart. Everything is going fine in your life. But now then, a glad heart maketh a cheerful countenance. Now the cheerful countenance is the outside. If somebody came up and gave me that gift I was talking about a minute ago, and I look at it, and it is the most precious gift I could possibly get, will you be able to read it on my face? See? You're going to see it on my face. It's going to come out. That's my countenance. My countenance is going to tell you what is on the inside of my mind. And so if I'm happy and cheerful, you're going to be able to read it. But on the other hand, but by the sorrow of heart, the spirit is broken. If I'm sorrowful, my spirit is broken, and you're not going to see it on my face. Now, how long do these things take? See? How long do they take? Suppose that right now, somebody came in here and told you that one of your loved ones had just died. How long would it take you for your face to show it? See? It would just be immediately. And so this is what it's saying here, that the way we look, as you look at a person, it tells you something. The way we look, if we're cheerful or if we are brokenhearted, why, we can see it in a person. The heart of him that hath understanding seeketh knowledge, but the mouth of fools feedeth on folly. Now, if a person has understanding, a person, just say, sitting here this morning, and they have understanding, what will they seek after? The heart of him that hath understanding seeketh knowledge. That's the goal. That's what a person with understanding seeks after. I want knowledge. I want to know more. I want to have the knowledge that God has given to mankind. I want to have the knowledge of God. We seek after knowledge if we have that kind of a heart. But the mouth of the fools feed on folly. So you take a fool, and they'd rather be out here talking to a bunch of drunks and down at the bar telling tall tales or doing something of this nature. So again, condition of the heart. Are you a wise person or are you a foolish person? Well, in verse 15, all the days of the afflicted are evil. Now, anytime that you suffer affliction, suffer problems, those days are evil. And that word means difficult. They're hard. All those days are evil. But he that is of a cheerful heart hath continual feast. So when a person is suffering, those days are bad. You don't go through times of suffering and say, oh, these are the best days of my life. No, they're bad days. But on the other hand, the person that has a cheerful heart, they have a continual feast. It's just everything is happy constantly with them. Now, if we put it all together, you start looking here about this, and do we want to be happy, cheerful people? Do we want our treasure in our house to be a blessing that'll bring happiness to other people? Do we want to be a delight to God? Do we want to be that cheerful person who lives in a continual feast? Now, I suppose all of us have used the example or heard it used about, wouldn't it be great if life was just a continuous party? That you maybe go to a party and you're having so much fun and you say, I wish this wouldn't end. I wish, we could go on with this. Well, the closest thing to that on earth is to have a cheerful heart, to have your heart right with God so that it will be a continuous feast as you go on. Another thing, better is little with the fear of Jehovah than great treasure and trouble therein. So, same thing we've talked about before. It's better to be have just little, be a poor man, and fear Jehovah. But be a household that has fear of Jehovah and be poor, than it is to have great treasure and trouble therein. You can have a family of Rockefellers or Kennedys or I don't care what kind of wealth, and if it's a family of troubles, a poor man out here that doesn't have anything but fears Jehovah, they're going to be in much better shape. Everything is going to be better that's in there. Better is a dinner of herbs where the love is than stalled ox and hatred therein. Now, better is a dinner of herbs. That is, here's a family, and the only thing they can afford is vegetables. Just go out and eat herbs. Just eat from the garden. That's all you can have. Now, that's better if your house is full of love than it is to have a stalled ox. Now, today we don't call it a stalled ox. But if you live on a farm, you know what a stalled ox is. The difference between a stalled ox and one that's not is one that's not is running in the field and eating grass. And when you kill that ox, there's no fat in it, and there's not going to be any taste to that meat. But a stalled ox is where you lock them up, and you feed them corn, and you get them fat, and you have the right amount of fat in there so that the meat is just right. And so when you go down and you look at that, what is it, USGA or DA or the approval, the inspection that they have on meat, as they look and, okay, this meat right here can fall into this price range because it's been locked up and fed. That's how all of them get that way. It's been locked up and fed until it has the right amount of fat for the right amount of taste, until it's the most tasty steak or roast that you could ever have. Now, he said, a house with love. eating only herbs is better than a rich person out here that eats the best of steaks but has trouble within it. Okay, there's where we close today as we put all these together.